this Sefer, but people saw the Sefer brought great blessings. So I think that's therefore people started promoting. This is a phenomenon of the last 10 years, or something that became so popular. So that's just a little introduction. What's he has in this Sefer. This Sefer is on with Shimshon. This Sefer is Shemos. Parashas. There's only this volume of art scrolls, Yitro and the Haggadah of Pesach. That's the only thing in this two parashas. Schools did an amazing job in the translation of this. Is I would one of the great translations, but the Sefer is not an easy Sefer. It's not a Sefer you have to and stop and think, and summarize, and you'll see how they summarize every so often. Summarize it. It's like a Sefer. Let's say you have about 25, we'll call it 25, something like that, or maybe how many drashot? Approximately 25 or so drashot Sefer. That means each, like you say, you want to call it an essay on different subject. It's like a rabbi giving us on a topic. Topic number one, topic number two, topic number three. There's a beautiful all the different topics in the Sefer, and it takes, it can take about an hour. Now, if you want to do justice, you go through we're not going to spend an hour here now. You do an hour. You just put your focus for an hour, then you really will get something out of Hashem. It's an in-depth. What do you say, Mr. Haber? It's an in-depth. Again, you're back and make believe you're back in Italy in the 1700s. The rabbi spoke. He was a rabbi in Italy, and he gave these drashot, and you're back in Italy. So it's something interesting to get a feel of that. What he time period. Which city in Italy he was. Let's see. They should say over here. Okay. I presume we'll have to see later which city, but it says, meanwhile, it says Italy, but probably multiple cities, like it was common. People didn't stay in one city, everybody would travel from one city to the other. So we have to see more which city and it was it. Obviously, the city that had such a great rabbi was greatly blessed. Now, he has a beautiful 5 drashot on the 10 commandments. He has 5 essays, 5 drashot. Why does he have 5 drashot on the 10 commandments? Says the Debrot, and I had the honor, I said before, of learning it with some of them and he brought the Sefer around, so he gets the credit. And because the 10 commandments, you have 5 on one side. You told everybody they were on, right? 5 on one, 5 on the side, right? There's 10. There were 2 tablets. They were identical tablets, meaning the tablets look exactly the same. They were the same size, was exactly the same, and there were two tablets. So he connects. It's not the number 1 of the 10. And if you take the 2 tablets, put them next to each other, number 1 is next to number 6. Number 2 is next to number 7, and so forth. And he goes on to explain, and this is something that other commentaries have done, what is the connection in number 6, number 2 and number 7, number 3 and number 8. It's not that this happens in one, this number, they line up. The fact that they're lined up together, and if you look at many Ashkenaz shuls, I don't know, Ashkenaz shuls, in the Kodesh, a lot of the shuls, like in Moshe Feinstein's Beit Midrash, they have the 10 commandments. Many of the not all. It's like one line, right? Because number 1 is number 6. That's how you. And now, what is the connection? What is the connection between number 1 and number 6? They could be talking about total different things. For instance, number 5 of the 10 commandments. What's number 5? Honoring your parents. That's 5. What's number, right? So number 5, honoring parents. What's next to it on that line? Number 10 is lo sachmo. Don't covet. Don't want someone else's stuff. Don't want someone else's wife. Don't want someone else's money. Don't want to try to get things that belong to you. So what's the connection between honoring your parents and that and don't that doesn't belong to you? So he will connect the dots, and he has beautiful how to connect the dot. Number 1 is 6, and each one is its own essay, its own schmooze. So we could, if you want, we could go to he has which they're all very good. Yeah, want a choice? Yeah, which one of the 10 commandments you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on one of the commandments of Shabbat? There's honoring your parents. Does anybody have any particular one they want to recommend, or of the 10? Yes. 5. Okay, very good. Now, see, he's gonna open up our imagination. Exactly, that's what he's going to do. We're gonna see that. Let's connect 5. Right, you should know. It's a good point what you're saying, Simone. Let's say Shabbat. On the Shabbat is number 4, right? And number 8, and on the other side, next to Shabbat, another luach, number 9 is don't testify falsely. So you can understand that Shabbat is a testimony about God created the world. So if you don't keep the Shabbat, you're obviously testifying false. That's why we're not going to pick, because that's only one idea. You can see the connection between keeping the Shabbat and don't testify falsely. But if you Shabbat, you're like saying there's no God did not create the world. That would be one, perhaps. But what's the connection between honoring your parents and don't desire someone else's wife? Don't desire someone else's house. Right? The Torah says, I can't, I like your sweatshirt. I want your sweatshirt. How much you want for it? Rabbi, I'm not selling it. And that's lo sachmo. Wanting something that belongs to someone, them into selling it. Even if they sell it. I didn't steal it from you. But you force somebody to sell it because it's yours. I'm not supposed to force you to tell something you don't want to sell. Is that correct, Mr. Ava? It's yours. You can let go. You can't. That belongs to him. Keep your space. That belongs to him. Hashem does not want you to force somebody to do something they don't want to do, right? Whatever you have is yours, but it's his. What am I forcing you to do something? So, what's the connection between honoring your parents? Here he goes. Kabed is next to lo sachmo. The pasuk says. So he says, regarding the commandment of honoring one's parents, it says, "L'man yerichan yamecha," and it says that you're going to go ahead and you're going to live a long life. So first he says, he connects to Rabbi Akiva. There's a Rabbi Akiva in the Gemara that says that if a person lives a righteous life, right? A person's a tzaddik, zacha. If you do the right things in life, what will happen is the court upstairs, you'll get judged that you will live out the entire lifespan that was allotted to you. The certain years of life that Hashem allotted to you. And if you do the, like most probably you have to say, we find there's a midrash about David HaMelech. David HaMelech was supposed to be born and die the same day, right? You heard of such a midrash? And Adam HaRishon was supposed to live 1,000. He was first supposed to live forever. He was supposed to live for 1,000 years. He was supposed to die the same day with David HaMelech. And Adam HaRishon, 70 years of his life went to David. That's what I recall such a thing. That means the certain amount of years he was supposed to live with, but he got 70 years from Adam. Adam passed away at 930 instead of 1,000. So here he says a person was allotted a certain amount of years. If he merits, he will go ahead and live out those years that he was married. Now, I presume there are certain people that were allotted a smaller portion of years. Some people were allotted a larger portion of years. But remember, even if a person is allotted a smaller portion of years, they will live forever in Olam Haba, which is forever. So that's how we can understand when a person is allotted a smaller portion, but maybe in this world it's a smaller portion, but in the next world it's for forever. But in this world, a person is allotted a certain amount of years. So if a person merits, they will live out that entire amount of years that they were given. But the heavenly court does not give him extra years to his life. Meaning that's the years that a person was allotted, whatever it was, and that's what you get. So now that's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So we ask the question, how do we understand Rabbi Akiva? How does Rabbi Akiva explain? It says, L'man yericha yamecha. It says that Kabedes Avicha, it's a very famous pasuk. If you honor your father and mother, L'man yericha yamecha. The pasuk says you're going to live longer as a result of honoring your parents, right? You know, some people will live long. You know, a lot of times you'll see that they honor their parents. And Hashem paid them back, that they live longevity, right? When I see someone honor their parents, I say you're going to live a long life. You know, because the Torah says you live a long life. It's a great merit to live a long life. Right, that's another, right. So the question is, send away the mother bird and take eggs. So the question is, how could Rabbi Akiva says he's not going to have added life, but the pasuk says, L'man yericha yamecha. The pasuk says that you will live long. So it sounds like you'll have longer life as a result of honoring your parents. But yet Rabbi Akiva says that a person the heavenly court will not add years to your life. If you merit, you'll live what you're allotted, but not extra. So according to Rabbi Akiva. But what do you mean? The pasuk says sounds like you're going to get extra years as a result of honoring your parents. That's the question on the table. Is the question clear? We have the Torah says in 10 Commandments, honor your parents, you'll live extra days. And then it says, and yet Rabbi Akiva says you won't live. Rabbi Akiva says the way it goes by a person's life. Again, we don't have all the details how these things work. It's very, beyond the scope of it. But if you just take the years, what Rabbi Akiva says, you could, if you merit, you'll live out your years, but not extra years. But the Torah says you'll get longevity for honoring your parents. So how do we explain Rabbi Akiva's opinion? Is it clear, Mr. Haber? Is the question clear on the table? Simon, right? Morris, that's the question. So he says, you have to say Rabbi Akiva agrees there's an actual way for a person to be rewarded with having additional years added to his life. There has to be, because the Torah says, L'man yericha yamecha. The Torah says you're going to have a long life by honoring your parents. But what do you mean? But Rabbi Akiva says you don't get a long life. So what does that mean? So he says, the Tosfos says in Yevamot. What does it say in Yevamot? Tosfos says like this in Yevamot. A woman who was a woman's hairdresser. There was a story that Miriam, the hairdresser's time came to die. Miriam was a hairdresser, and it was time for her to die. The angel of the Malach HaMaves, the angel that came down to take her soul. And mistakenly took the soul of Miriam, the caretaker of children instead. So we have two Miriams. We have a Miriam. Now, obviously, this has happened. Hashem made it that it should happen for a certain lesson. Obviously, it's also, but we're going to just say the words and we'll try to understand it. The Gemara says, and so she took the soul of Miriam, the caretaker. Now, so you have the Malach HaMovet, you have the angel of death, and he has people working for him. The angel of death has agents who work for him. And then when the angel of death, who heard of this mistake that his agent made by taking the wrong Miriam, he said that the caretaker's soul should nevertheless remain in heaven. The lady who took care of the children, whose life was taken by mistake, should still remain in heaven. Rav Bibi, who heard of the incident, asked the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, what would happen to the remaining years that were allotted to this woman when she was born. Meaning Miriam, who left this world prematurely, she was not supposed to leave this world according to, but she was taken it by mistake. Now, obviously, if it was done, it's for the best, whatever it is, but it's obviously, but she was allotted a certain amount of years. Where do those years go? Let's say she was supposed to live an extra 25 years, and she died prematurely because she was taken by the agent. So where do those years go? So the agent of death replied, when I see a young rabbinic scholar who is a forgiving person, someone who is a young rabbinic scholar who is a forgiving person, I will add those years to his life. So who will get those years? Now we have to know why specifically a rabbi who's forgiving, but I would get those years of this woman will be transferred to where? To that rabbinic scholar who will be forgiving of people, will let things go. Now, the Gemara seemingly contradicts the position of Akiva, who maintains that Hashem does not add years to a person's lifespan beyond the years that were beyond, more than what he was born with. So how does Rabbi Akiva, how would we explain this according to Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva says Hashem won't add years to a person's life, and here we see that a person's life will be added. So the Re says Rabbi Akiva it's not called added years to a person's life. What is it? Since these years has been allotted to another person, meaning it's new years won't come to the world. A new year that wasn't allotted to a person will not come to a person. But a year that was allotted to someone else, we just had in the Gemara, in our Gemara class. What do you have in the Gemara class? If someone sees in a dream him connecting with a married woman, what did the Gemara say? You see it in here, it's a great sign. What is a great sign? Because it means you're going to have the portion. You're not only going to have your portion, a married woman is not your portion. It doesn't belong to you, right? You see someone else's wife in the dream. But it means you're going to have someone else's portion, not only your portion in the next world. What is it a sign of? You're going to have someone else's portion as well. And you're such a great person, you're going to get not only your portion, but someone else's portion, which means the person who lost his portion in the next world, the people that lose their portion, right? There are Jewish people that lose their portion in the next world. No, that portion, no, I don't know. It could be anybody. I mean, I don't know why the Gemara, she said over here, he will give it to, meaning the agent, the Malach HaMavet, I'll add those years to the rabbi. But in general, any it doesn't have to be a rabbi. Anybody should be able to get someone else's portion if you deserve it, if you're very righteous or whatever it might be. So that's what it means. New years that were not allotted, but the years could be moved around. There could be someone who was supposed to live longer. They forfeited those years because whatever the case might be, either they acted inappropriately, or in this case, this person didn't act inappropriately, but those years could be transferred to somebody else. So that's what he says. Now, I mean, obviously God has to make determination, approve and say who gets whose years, but that's the, again, I presume there are certain people that were never meant to live longer. They were meant to have you see a baby dies at 3 years old, right? Obviously that baby was meant to live 3 years. It wasn't allotted more than the 3 years. But let's say, that's what I would understand. But I'm saying, but there are certain people, depending on the situation, only God knows, there are some people that were allotted more years, but as a result of that, let's say a person sinned and the court killed him. A person at 20 sinned, or at 15, the court killed him because he sinned. He got warned and witnesses. So there's a good chance he was allotted more years, that guy. But he decided to act in an inappropriate life. He decided to be an inappropriate person, and he did all these sins. And he became a murderer at 18. So now, was he allotted? There's a good chance he was allotted more years. But what did he do? He forfeited his years by living such a lifestyle, right? That's what I would speculate, right? So he says here also, in the case of someone who honors his parents, which years will he get? According to Rabbi Akiva, you'll get years that belong to someone else who lost those years because of their actions. That's the extra years that you could be allotted. Is that clear, Mr. Haver? Is that clear? You could get someone else's years, just like you could get someone else's portion in the next world. I mean, not only you get your portion, you get someone else's portion. He forfeited his portion. I got it. I got his portion. Right? Like they say, and maybe like I got his portion because he lost it, and I merit to get his portion. This Rabbi for Italy, he's not making up his own thing. He's basing it on Tosfot. I mean, this is Tosfot who says. Tosfot says this point. Tosfot in the Gemara in Chagiga. Tosfot is addressing Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva says a person does not added New Year's, right? And Tosfot says, what do you mean? We find a story in the Gemara that a person that he will add it to the person. It can be added. So Tosfot says that you can be added years from someone else. Only years that already were allotted in the world could be moved to somebody, but no new years that weren't allotted in the world will not be added to somebody. The only way you can get more years than you're allotted to is from someone else's years, according to Rabbi Akiva. That's Tosfos. That's now that he established that, now he uses that Tosfot to answer our question. What's the connection between honoring your parents and not to desire someone else's item? So he says the connection is the following. Listen to this. Don't want someone else's years. Don't want that someone else should die premature, that you should have their years. That's the connection. So one connection is, lo sachmod. I just spoke about honoring your parents. And I said you're going to have long years if you honor your parents. And according to Rabbi Akiva, the only way to get those long years is what do you got to do? It has to come from someone else's years. Is that correct? According to Rabbi Akiva. Other people might disagree and say, no, you don't need someone else's years. You could Shem on his own will give you years, new years. But according to Rabbi Akiva, the only way you're going to get more years is someone else's years. So the Torah says, don't ever come into your mind to think, I want something to happen that someone else should die premature so I can get their years. Don't desire someone else's years. That's the connection. How do you like that novel thought? It's very novel. It's a very chidush to connect the dots, to use this. That's the greatness of this rabbi. He's able to take this idea of Tosfot and connect it to the connection between, that's one, again, by the way, he's never, usually, as we saw in Mars, he's not satisfied with one answer to a question. Usually there's always multiple answers to the question. Not a one answer, okay, we got an answer, okay, now it's over. No, he doesn't work that way. He'll give multiple answers. Now, that's answer number one. Number two, he says, another answer, he says, so I'll give you I'm not going to go in the order. He gives, you know how many he gives, I'll tell you how many answers. Yeah, this is a short, by the way, this is a short essay, by the way. This one's one of the shorter ones. Another answer he gives is honoring, by the way, if anyone has to leave, it's 8:59. I don't want to make anybody late. I don't want to cause any problems, all right, with anybody's wives. You know what I'm saying? Should we go 5 more minutes? You tell me, what's Mr. Haber, how long should we go? 5 more minutes is good. He says honoring is dependent, a lot of honoring one's parents is dependent on the heart. It's not just doing an act of honoring. Like the Gemara says, there's someone who could honor his parents and if you throw food at your parents, you don't present it in a nice way, and you don't think about your parents in the most honored way, and in missing out on honoring your parents. There's a concept of the heart. There's a lot of the heart, like it says, that honoring your parents is also how you think about them. You're supposed to think about your parents like they're great people, right? So he says, Since a lot of the honoring of your parents has to do with how you think about them and your intent and your feelings of your heart. So, and desiring someone else's item is also in the heart. So therefore, the connection is you need to understand the Torah wants to connect the honoring your parents to to a prohibition that deals with the focus is the heart, not to desire something that belongs to someone else, to emphasize the heart in this mitzvah, to emphasize your attitude and how you think of your parents and your feelings about your parents, how much that plays a role in this mitzvah. So that's another suggestion that he connects, that we have to, it's not just giving them food to eat, it's how you do it, how you present it, how you feel about your parents. Like the Sefer Chinuch says, you have to look at them as if they're gedolim. Meaning you're supposed to look at your parents, and even if they're not a big rabbi, you're supposed to look at them as if they're one of the noble people of the land. So a lot of the honoring of your parents has to do with not just how you think of them, and thinking, and a lot of that of the not to desire someone else's item is also about the what? Your thought. Simon, you hear what I'm saying? You got to think of your parents in a great way. Therefore, that's very key to this mitzvah. And therefore, that's why it's connected to a mitzvah that has to do with the heart. The other thing he says, all averos come from desire. People have certain desires, and that brings them to do sins. Someone who honors his parents because his parents gave birth to him certainly will honor God and follow God's mitzvahs. Because the same way your parents are partners in your creation, God, like the Gemara says, it's three partners: father, mother, and God is the partners in the creation of a person. So if you honor your parents, if you honor your parents because they gave birth to you, you certainly will honor God. It's right. That's why it's very good. That's why parents, it's on the first tablet, even though the first tablet focuses on mitzvahs between you and God, like you should be God, don't swear falsely, but on that tablet is honoring one's parents. What is it doing there? Because like Simon says, because when you honor your parents, that will lead you to honoring God. Therefore, that's why it's on the tablet that represents between man and God. What is it doing there? Because this is the stepping stone. If you honor your parents, you're going to lead to honoring God, because you recognize how much more God plays a role than your parents. Parents played a very small role, pretty much, in your birth. God is think about your father. How much role did the father play in the birth, right? And God is the battery and everything that everything should come together and work. So he says, and as a result of honoring your parents, you're going to honor God, and you honor God. That means you're going to fulfill all his mitzvot. If you honor God, you recognize God, you want to listen to what he has to say. So therefore, it's connected to the heart. Therefore, it connects to this mitzvah of this. Don't desire something else is someone else's item, because the wrong desire, leads to all the sins, and the honoring of God leads to all the mitzvot. So therefore, the connection between honoring your parents is a stepping stool to following all of the Torah. If you honor your parents, it's going to lead to honoring God and the fulfillment of all the Torah. And that's why it's parallel to this other mitzvah. Don't desire someone else's item, but wrong desires lead to the desecration of the whole Torah. All the Averos come from that. And therefore, that's why he says that's the connection. You want the fulfillment of all of them, that's why that's the connection. The fulfillment of the whole Torah and the breaking of the whole Torah. This is why you have to make the choice. Honor your parents, meaning to say, that will lead to the fulfillment of the whole Torah. And the opposite is, don't desire something else that doesn't belong to you, because that will lead to the breaking of the whole Torah. And that's the connection between honoring your parents, and then you'll see in the Sefer, they'll say to summarize. They'll summarize it for us. So in this, we did 3 out of the 4 answers, by the way. So we skipped 1 answer because of time constraint. So again, we'll end with the 3 answers. Answer number 1 is honor your parents. It says you're going to live a long life, but don't desire someone else's life. Don't want someone else to die prematurely, so you should be able to get those extra years. That's why it's connected. It says you're going to get long life, but we said, according to Rabbi Akiva, to get extra years, you need someone else's years. Don't want someone else to die prematurely. That's answer number 1. Answer number 2 is that honoring your parents has a lot to do with how you think of them, your attitude towards them. If you think of them in a great high esteem, and it's depend on your heart, a lot of your heart, how your feelings. It's not just the act, it's the feelings of how you act to your parents. And the Torah, therefore, the Torah connects it to a mitzvah that lo sachma, don't desire, which someone else's thing, which is also in the heart, to emphasize the heart. And the third answer we said is that honoring your parents leads to all the mitzvot, because when you honor your parents, you're going to honor God. And therefore, it's connected, that corresponding to it is don't desire something that belongs to someone else. But if you desire something that belongs to someone else, that means you have taivos, desires, and that leads to the breaking of all the Torah and mitzvahs. That's. I think it's just a beautiful essay, a beautiful piece. What do you say? Say, is that something or not? Tremendous, gorgeous. And this the depth, because he takes a Tosfot, takes a Gemara, he takes a Tosfot, he builds on it, and then he connects us. That's just you see the beauty of it, and the way, like I said, they did an amazing job on this. I'm telling you, because they took a very hard sefer, which is not easy, and they made it accessible. The people could open it up, but you got to put time. What we just did right now, I've done it before with Mara. It's not like I just open it up. You can't just open it up like that and just, you have to just, right, Morris? We gotta sit down, take an hour, and work on it. So much. Have a great day, everybody. Yes. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it's from someone else who died, who did some things wrong, whatever, that they forfeited their years. There are people that forfeit their years, right? Some people that go ahead, I want to say, they take drugs and they take different things. Rahman, a terrible problem. And they were supposed to, most of those people most probably were allotted more years, but they got into certain habits. They got connected with wrong people, wrong friends, I would speculate, and therefore they blew it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day. Hope I didn't hold you too long. That was perfect. Okay.